Yes, I'm live. So, welcome to No Prequel Memes Allowed. Um, this time I kind of have a script ready. Believe it or not, this was one that I actually wrote last year as I think it was before Mandalorian season 3 came out as Andor was airing, but Jenny Nicholson was actually posting a pic, actually tweeted a pic of Luke, Ahsoka, and Grogu in that one episode of the Book of Boba Fett. And you know what? With cancellation of the Acolyte, I just felt it was kind of appropriate to talk about this. So let me start out by saying that I was actually very disappointed in the Acolyte, mainly because it was one of my most anticipated Star Wars projects, because for the first time since Andor, we're getting something truly new. And I mean, like, the build up to watching it every week and being able to chat with people well after each episode was honestly some of the most fun I've had being a part of the fandom. But overall, I just felt very disappointed in in terms of the pacing and the acting. Like, for one thing, with the pacing, 30 let me just say right now, 30 minutes without credits for live action Star Wars TV, that should be fucking illegal. Like, that is nowhere near enough time to actually get out the story or develop your characters. But I digress. After it was canceled last shit, how long has it been since the Acolyte was canceled? Uh, hold on. Was it like 2 weeks ago? Well, anyway, like, I admit I was upset with that because I feel like the show wasn't completely unsalvageable. Like, I feel like if you got new writers, had more episodes, and you added some closure to the season 2 finale in case, it doesn't work after that. The point is, I feel like you shouldn't have given up on that so quickly. And on top of that, it kind of comes into um one sec. Sorry, I'm just trying to have some friends on here. Whoa, that's weird. Uh, let me try now. Are you serious? Okay, so apparently it's not giving me a link to show, it's not giving me a YouTube link for my friends to come into. Hold on. Um, maybe this will work. There we go. Making sure it's sent. Wait. Sorry, just wanted to give a heads up to my friends who are watching them. Where is it? All right. Let me. All right. So hopefully there couldn't be any more mix-ups after that. But with the Acolyte being canceled, and the thing is, this if there was a healthy balance of new content and fan service in Star Wars, I wouldn't be as upset with the Acolyte being canceled. Problem is, the last few years of content has just been like Mando versus Glub Shitos. It's just the Acolyte is basically something original like the Acolyte is rare in Star Wars nowadays. And it shouldn't be because like you keep relying on the same characters over and over and over again, and Star Wars is gonna get boring. I just really wanted to talk about like this old script that I had and just get my thoughts out. I just I just think there I go rambling again. All right. So I mean go going back to The Force Awakens, like the one thing that you would always hear from people is, this is just a New Hope 2.0. And like I'm not gonna deny that it is pretty similar to A New Hope, but keep in mind, back in 2015, the prequels were still universally hated. And honestly, you just feel like Disney doing The Force Awakens the way they did was just, hey, let's prove that we can make a Star Wars movie that feels like the original trilogy in modern day. So it's like, okay, we just do this, let's try something new. And then you have Rogue One come out, which I mean, yeah, we've never had a Star Wars movie like that kind of dark tone before, but at the same time, they just try to throw in every original trilogy reference that you could possibly have because like from my personal experience when I see people bring up how Rogue One is the best Disney Star Wars movie, why didn't they make a movie as good as Rogue One ever again? There is one thing that they almost never bring up: the characters. when I just when I hear someone talking about Rogue One, it's like, oh, the third act is incredible. Oh my god, that Vader scene is so fucking awesome. Oh look, Bail Organa. It's just, and then you ask them about who Baze Malbus is, and it's like, yeah. And then comes The Last Jedi, which was like, well, let me go back. Oh boy, I've been waiting to pick this up. Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi honestly means everything to me. Like, hot take, but I feel like Luke in The Last Jedi is a Star Wars character that anyone can relate to, like, mainly because of his it's kind of like a mental health struggle where you just maybe you just done something you just fucked up really bad, and it's like, do you how can you look at yourself again? Like, I understand people saying like, "Oh, but he resisted the dark side." Like, I understand resisting the dark yeah, resisting the dark side is like, yes, but you don't just resist the dark side once and then you're done. Like, you don't get depressed once and then you never get depressed again. It's like depression is a constant thing, and it's like just because you fall on your ass, quote Huey from The Boys, just because you fall on your ass doesn't mean you have to stay there. Like, if a fucking legend like Luke Skywalker or can get back on his ass after depression, I just feel like that's something we can all do. And he's just gotten me through a lot of tough times. And of course, look, of course, first the fandom reaction was just like, well, okay, we all know what the fandom reaction was. And it was just like, after that, it just felt like Disney didn't want it felt like Disney didn't want to try that again because after that we got Rise of Skywalker and it's like, oh hey, we're just gonna undo all that and then and bring in a bunch of old characters. Like, oh hey, here's Palpatine again, but that's besides the point. I'm sorry, like Nazo, are you talking about Palpatine in Legends or Luke in Legends? Well, like while I'm here, like I know, like okay, you know, I might read it sometime soon, but like re I'm not really the reading type. Like if you could send me if you have some audio books, maybe one day I'll just find a time to sit down and put one on. But anyway, going back, like The Mandalorian is kind of where um The Mandalorian is kind of like, I guess you could say I feel apathetic to The Mandalorian at this point. Like I went back and watched the first season a few months ago, and it's like actually not that bad. Like it felt like Star. It at least felt different. Like given the even even though there was one episode where he goes to Tatooine, like you have all these new characters. You're trying to explore this new time period, like what happened almost immediately after the Empire fell. You also have a little tumor. You also have a little tumor walking along, but that's besides the point. Then comes season two, and then like one of the thanks Nazo, but like one of the first things that you see in in season two is a guy with Boba Fett's armor. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love me some Cobb Vanth, but Then like 2 episodes later, or you start introducing there. Oh hey, Bo-Katan, and I'm like, I mean, she's helping Mando to get Grogu to a Jedi, so it's like yeah, I can kind of accept that. Then comes Ahsoka, which I mean, she's in fucking everything now, but at the time, it's like okay. And then next episode comes Boba Fett, and it's like, what are you doing? And then you have an episode after that. You have The Believer, which is honestly, in my opinion, I feel like that's where the show peaked because like it did not only did it not rely on Grogu too much, but it showed the kind of show that the Mandalorian could be. Like you have this side character from like one episode, and you give him depth. It's like at some points it can be a little haunting. And then the next episode's deepfake Luke. I'm not gonna lie to you, like when I first watched that moment happen with deepfake Luke, I mean, for one thing, it was like 5:45 a.m., so oh, I was a little tired. But then I actually just sighed. But but that's just my thing. Next year comes around, and we get Book of Boba Fett. You know what? And like Boba Fett himself, I kind of like mainly just because he wasn't just some one-dimensional killer. They actually managed to give him a character at this point. Now, whether you like that character or not is kind of just a personal preference. But for one thing, Book of Boba Fett was kind of just all over the place. You have the modern day storyline, which takes fucking forever to develop because they just throw in flashback, almost like it's trying to show us how Boba got to that point. Like, well, I honestly feel like it could have just been, and then half of the episodes just be flash. Well, not really. Like the flashbacks are kind of like you can't. How do I put this? I like some of the flashbacks, like the stuff with the Tuskens, but then you're just getting to the. You're also showing like, oh, here's Boba Fett rescuing Fennec, even though that, like, we all kind of knew that Boba was the one who rescued Fennec in Mando. That's besides the point. Oh, speaking of Mando, the show just Book of Boba Fett just stops for like a Mando focus episode, which I mean we didn't get Mando season four. We didn't get Mando season 3 till like a year after Book of Boba Fett aired. So I, I guess I can kind of accept that as a little one-off. And then we get to chapter 6, where this whole issue with the fan service just clicked for me. Y- Like focus a Book of Boba Fett chapter 6. Luke Skywalker training Grogu, featuring Mando and R2D2 and Ahsoka and Cad Bane and a Order 66 flashback. And at that point, I was just like, Dave, what are you doing? Like, what are you? Did you really have? Were you actually just like giving up on the show at that point? Because like, what does Luke training Ahsoka have to do with Boba Fett? Oh, and then you have Mando. You just have Grogu going back to Mando because I feel like that's pretty much where I feel like the problem with the fan service lies is with Filoni. Like, I respect I respect Filoni a lot for his animated work and like how he managed to make Maul a actual fucking character, but his live action work is pretty much just, hey, remember this? I mean, we get to Ahsoka and one episode. Well, aside from it being Rebels characters, and you deciding to pair up Ahsoka and Sabine just because. Then you have one episode where half of it is a goddamn Clone Wars flashback in live action. And oh, hi Rex. Okay, bye Rex. Mhm. Oh, and then you also got Kenobi, which is kind of like, yeah, yeah, Kenobi does suffer from fan service. I guess, though I feel like it's not to that extent. And yeah, even the Acolyte, a time period where set in a time period where most beloved Star Wars characters aren't even born yet, couldn't help but shove in three old characters for like a second each. And in that whole time period, like between Mando season one and Ahsoka, the I mean that time period between Mando season two and Ahsoka, the only true thing that we get, the only truly original thing that we get from it is Andor. And really think about this. Andor manages to take Mon Mothma, who had like maybe three lines in the original in Return of the Jedi, and manages to make her one of the most engaging characters in the franchise. It takes Cassian Andor, a character. Well, I guess I could say he was probably the best character of Rogue One. He at least had something there, but wasn't really that well developed. But just showed us his growth, like everything he's had to lose to just become part of the rebellion. A show that introduces like a show that makes even the most minor new characters feel important. I mean, I think I remember at one point Leslie Headland saying this would be Andor for that Acolyte would be Andor for Jedi. Probably, yeah. I don't think she watched Andor, but that's besides the point. The point is like Mando, Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, on Ahsoka, Andor, Acolyte. Out of those six shows, only two of them felt truly new. Well, two and a third. It's just like I feel like the reaction to the hate that the Last Jedi received just scared Disney off from trying anything original after that, and it sucked because I don't, I just don't want Star Wars to fall in. just fall into the nostalgia bait category and keep relying on those same characters over and over and over and over again to the point where no one gives a fuck anymore. Like, I don't want to see deepfake Luke on my screen for like the next 5 years. By the way, can we talk about that for a second? Like Disney, you hired a guy who not only looks like a young Mark Hamill, but sounds like a young Mark Hamill to play young Luke Skywalker. And that you just put his, you just plaster a deep fake and give him an AI voice. Just someone, please, someone explain that to me. If you had just gone with Graham Hamilton, not only would you have not only would you have saved money, but you would have gotten an actual fucking performance. And to be fair, I'm not sure how honest. If I'm being honest, I don't know how Graham Hamilton is as an actor, honestly. But you know, would have put more. He honestly would have put way more emotion into it and the than like the literal digital creation that is young Luke. Well, okay, I guess it's not a literal digital creation, just the deep fake. But you know what I mean. I want Star Wars to feel fresh. And it's like, I'm not saying all fan service is bad because it can work. Uh, or if you like, have the characters serve a purpose for being there, or you just expand on them, like with Cassian and Mon Mothma. But again, going back to the Last Jedi, my favorite scene in that movie, and probably my all-time favorite scene in Star Wars, is with Yoda and the greatest teacher failure is. Again, I just feel like that's one of the most relatable things out there. And on top of that, Yoda's just giving Luke the kick in the ass he needs to get out and save the resistance. Like, like if you had more scenes like that where the character is actually fucking doing something important, then I wouldn't mind seeing an old character show up every now and then. That, and if it's not as frequent as it is right now, because again, even in the show set 100 years before the Phantom Menace, can't go without showing old characters. Like for instance, I want Finn to come back, but it's because I want him to feel important again. And I just want him to get a backstory, like show us his early days of the Resistance, or hell, if you want, hell, you can show him as a Jedi if you want, but it's like give him the Stormtrooper Rebellion, like Colin Trevorrow came up with. If I mean, for one thing, if he had kept that in Episode 9, it would have given him something to do. Finn is a character that Finn is honestly the character that solidified my love for the sequel trilogy, and well, 2/3 of the sequel trilogy. Just seeing him constantly getting shafted fucking sucks. And what's even sadder is I'm not even sure if now is a good time to bring him back. I feel like at this point he would probably just be there for fan service. I don't want to think that, but that's honestly what the last few years of Star Wars have felt like. And Disney going going back to the sequel era, that whole era has been sitting in storage for 5 years now. You're only just now pulling it out for the for Rey's new Jedi Order movie. It's like honestly, if you want more people to like the sequel era, you need to expand upon it. Like I'll give George Lucas this. He didn't stop when people didn't like the prequels. He just kept on going, making it how he wanted it, putting because he was passionate about it at the very least. Like he helped make a whole 7 season show to actually give characters from the prequels depth, and it ended up creating a bunch of new characters that people love to this day. I mean, the easiest thing I could say is a Finn show, but just in general, maybe show us the early days of the First Order. Show how they brainwash stormtroopers, or hell, maybe a little mini series showing the time between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. I don't know. It's just the Clone Wars has 20 years worth of content. I think it's time. I think it's time to let it rest. And I'm honestly a little tired of seeing Imperial stuff everywhere, but that's just a personal thing. And then on top of that, we already have the Mando and Grogu movie. We got there. They showed Snow Troopers, and the Razor Crest, which, for the record, I'm pretty sure that's just Zeb's Razor Crest, and they don't actually rebuild it because that would be even stupider at this point. Because at this point, Mando feels like a show where here they just undo everything that made the first season good, that made the first season engaging, and everything that made Din Djarin interesting. Again, that's just a personal thing. Really, I just want Star Wars to feel fresh again. I feel like the only way that Star Wars will truly die is when people stop being creative, when Star it just feels like I'm being marketed something, and I just don't want it to get to that point. I'll be back. I mean, that's pretty much all the notes I had on from my script, but at this point, it's kind of just shooting the shit with whatever's on my mind. Like, I can't we never got Andor merch. I can't. Well, I can't really say never, but like I understand that Andor wasn't a show that was designed with toys in mind, but like people love Andor. Like most people you see on Twitter will talk about how much they love Andor. And I'm no exception. So I feel like the show has done its job. Like maybe get some maybe get some new posters. Like I would like. Do you know how much I want a Nemec poster? Or like I don't care where I would hang it. I just love Nemec. I would understand him not getting an action figure because he is not really a character that strikes me as, oh, I want to play. Oh, I just want to display him on my shelf. But anyway, like yeah. when like I finally just got that Andor poster. I finally got an Andor poster hanging in my dining room, but it's like why not? Why can't they sell individual character posters? Why does display have nothing for them? Like I I just think that Andor characters deserve more. Well, I'm not saying they deserve more respect. They have a lot of respect. I just, it's just like, why do glorified background characters like Axe Woves get multiple figures, and yet I can't get a fucking Kino Loy figure? Like, I mean, at this point, we don't even have a Rise of Skywalker Finn figure, and I honestly think that's his best getup. That's his best drip. Like, and County Boy deserves so much better. Like, how do you take someone who's meant to be the co-lead of your trilogy, and then you just, I mean, yes, I still love Rey and Kylo's dynamic, but come on, and Finn kind of made The Force Awakens. Like I've got that Finn Force Awakens character poster hanging up in my over my TV. It is honestly beautiful. I got three cats running around in here, and one of them's just crazy. 10 years next year. Next year, 10 years of The Force Awakens, which is mm, it's fucking mind-boggling. Mm. I'm I honestly miss the hype for The Force Awakens, and mainly for like the Disney Star Wars movies in general. Like for one thing, I was like 3 years old when Phantom Menace came out. I didn't care. I didn't really care about Star Wars at that point. I was just sitting around wondering where all my Legos were. I mean, hell, I didn't. What's crazy is that I didn't even watch Revenge of the Sith for the first time until 2012. It's like once all the new Star Wars movies were announced, I was like, okay, so now I have to actually watch Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, pretty late to the game. Yeah, yeah, I know, Nazo. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I used to the internet reviews of Revenge of the Sith got to me because I used to hate it for the longest time. I think it's pretty overrated now, but I honestly respect it a lot more. Oh yeah, next year is 20th anniversary of of Revenge of the Sith. Like, what the fuck? Let me tell you something. One thing I really want for 20th anniversary, Lego Ultimate Collector Series Jedi Interceptor. That would literally be the only Ultimate Collector Series I would ever need. Like the 10 years of The Force Awakens honestly feels crazier to me. Just going back to that, the hype for new Star Wars movies in general, but especially within the years the sequel trilogy came out, it honestly felt special to me. I just remember constantly looking at Facebook for the leaks, just sitting around like, when's the trailer coming out? Like, I kept refreshing YouTube the morning that first Force Awakens teaser came out. I remember, I remember like my senior year of high school, wait, watching that second teaser, and it was just fucking incredible. I mean, that movie was the perfect way to cap off my first seeing it opening day. That was the perfect way to cap off my first semester of college. It feels like lately, and it feels like with past few years of Star Wars, we don't get that anymore. Like when one show ends, here's a promo for another one. Like no joke, the day the Book of Boba Fett finale aired, they had already started promoting Kenobi. Like actually getting to see a new Star Wars movie on the big screen for the first time is it's special. Keyword new because I actually saw Phantom Menace 3D back in 2012. Does does anyone else remember that? I've been asking that for like the last few months now, and honestly, I do think it would be cool to like. I think it'd be cool if that were to ever get a re-release along with Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith 3D, because those were actually finished and shown at Celebration, and it was just fun. I mean, up until that point, one of my biggest Star Wars experiences was playing all the Lego Star Wars games. Not really, but it's just the Lego Star Wars games were fun. And yet I cannot for the life of me think about why it took what was it like until 4 months after the first game came out that it finally came out on the GameCube. I miss my GameCube. I mean, yeah, it is nice that the films get re-releases at all, but I don't know, there was something about seeing them in 3D at the time that just felt kind of cool. I mean, when you're like a 16-year-old and you're finally getting over your fear of 3D. Now, 'cause I used to be terrified of 3D, mainly just because of when everything was popping out. Oh, Miriam's here. Oh, but no, I feel like I still hate it when everything is just like popping out at you, like why the like I'm looking at this gigantic hand coming out, like no, hurt me, don't hurt me. But then I saw Toy Story 3 in 3D, and it's just like, oh, 3D can actually be enjoyable. I mean, just seeing Star Wars in 3D in general, where it's like a ship can fly out at you, is like that's kind of like every kid's dream. That makes you wonder if there is any Star Wars thing on Apple Vision Pro. Wow, I do not think I have ever talked this long. I need water. As I come back and get to enjoy my uncomfortable staring. All right, so random question: does anyone feel like Nemec has autism? I just so I have autism, and I feel like I just when I watch Nemec talk about how he's something he is so passionate about, and he describes so many details in like a kind of kind of in a weird sort of way, like so much going so much going wrong, so much to say, and all of it happening so quickly. They need to need, for me that strips our ability to understand it, and that is the imperial thought. It's easier to hide behind 40 atrocities than a single incident. It's like kind of hyper, kind of passionate tone. It's just I just really connected with him. I know a friend who thinks Peck has autism, but I didn't actually didn't finish the Bad Batch, so can't really comment on that. Like I watched the first season of the Bad Batch and I just couldn't get into it. Like going back to the 3D re-releases, I think the plan was one a year, and then 2017, which was the 40th anniversary of Star Wars, would have been Return of the Jedi 3D. And it's honestly kind of weird to think about how would have gotten Return of the Jedi 3D instead of Last Jedi. My God, I have one crazy cat. I don't know, like, but even then, by that point, I feel like it. Yes, they are going nuts, but like, I feel like by 2017, nobody really cared about 3D anymore. So, not really sure how the box office would have done. A while back, I actually went on and tried looking for a 3D TV on eBay just for the hell of it. I know there's a Force Awakens 3D Blu-ray, and just thinking that would have kind of been cool to own. It was nice knowing that the very least Disney Plus Star Wars shows are getting physical releases. Although, what's that Book of Boba Fett hasn't gotten a physical release yet? I mean, Kenobi and Andor already have their 4K Blu-rays. There's already rumors about Mando season 3 and Ahsoka getting 4K Blu-rays, and it's like you're really gonna do those without a Book of Boba Fett Blu-ray. I mean, Book of Boba Fett kind of has important details to kind of fuck up your story, but I guess my issue is why they cost an arm and a leg to buy. Oh yeah, because they only put them in steel books. Yeah, I don't get that part either. Like, like I like it when you have cases with poster art. I've actually never bought. I actually never bought a steel book until the Andor Blu-ray. 80 plus for a season of Mando. Well, it's 50. Highest I saw was 50 for the 4K Blu-ray. Yeah, I mean it sucks. It sucks that a lot of the price comes from the steel book. well, then again, it's also a show, but like, well, I guess I would say a lot of the price still comes from Steelbook. Like, I understand that some of the artwork can be cool, but I don't know. The average film goer or physical media collector, but the average physical media collector, do you really is a steelbook really worth it when you can't just buy it without having to pay extra for said steelbook? Oh, don't have $60 lying around. Trust me, I know the feeling. The one thing I kind of noticed when I first got the Andor blue, well, I mean, the comparison shots, you've probably seen some comparison shots on YouTube about how the 4K Blu-ray picture is much brighter. And that's one thing I always hated about Disney Plus. Like when I wanted to when I wanted to watch a Star Wars show, the picture was just like the glare would just cover up most of the picture. And I don't really have that problem with the I don't really have a I don't really have a problem with watching it that way, but the 4K Blu-ray is definitely the way to go. And it's kind of funny because when I first got when I first watched it, and then I watched The Acolyte almost immediately after that, like that Disney Plus opening Star Wars logo looked way darker. Like I don't really know much about how transfers work, like different. You know, what? I'm not gonna lie, I've been talking for a while and feel like I'm just gonna end the stream here. I'm not gonna, and the only time I feel like making a stream like this is when it's something that I really want to talk about. So I don't know if I do this again, it's probably not gonna be for a while. Thanks for joining. I hate that.